All right, I've reached a point in the project where I had to step back and update my plan because the next part, the infeed table, is quite a lot more complex than the outfeed table that I've already done. Also, I wanted to check over the work I already did to make sure that it was actually strong enough. I added a couple of braces in key locations. First is on the end here. I took off that cap that I had on there before and I put a permanent one in there. I also added a baffle or brace right below the cutter head. And what these do is they brace up the structure and keep it from twisting and racking. I already added that panel on the bottom for the motor, and that keeps it from twisting this way. So over here on the infeed side of the table, I've already cut the sub table, I guess you could call it, the piece of 3/4 inch plywood that goes beneath the steel. And I used my plan to determine the exact size of that, how far it needs to go forward without touching the cutter head. And once again, I just cut this from scrap plywood that I already had. I beveled the front edge at 45 degrees, cut it to the correct width, and then trimmed off the length on the miter saw. And this works very much the same way as the outfeed table does. Fits in here, it goes up close to the cutter head. What I need to do next is I need to make the ramp part of the inclined plane, the part that's attached to this table right here. And once again, I'm going to be using 3/4 inch plywood for that. And very much like the sub table itself, I'm going to cut it at 45 degrees on the front edge. And that'll allow me to attach it to the bottom of the sub table with glue and some brads for now. Now that I got that tacked on, before it sets up too much, I want to check to make sure that this part is actually square to the sub table. I'm doing that by putting it on top of my table saw here, and I'm using my square to square up from this edge to this edge. And this looks pretty good. The next thing I need to do is cut the pieces that fit inside here that actually brace this inclined plane to the sub table and make it really strong. This whole arrangement here has to be very strong because the entire weight and stability of this table rests on this inclined plane. Okay, I've got it cut on the angle, but I need to know the length, and I'm just going to put it in place. To do that, shove it right in there where it's supposed to go and mark it on the end. This is not really critical, but you know, it looks neater if I make it exactly the right length. All right, a little bit more of the polyurethane construction adhesive for glue and a few brads to hold it while it dries. I shouldn't need any screws in here since this glue connection here will be strong enough. All right, I did have to put a couple screws in because it didn't look like this stuff was actually 100% flat, so I put one here on each side and that pulled it in tight. I also put a couple through the top here as well to pull it in tight there. I'm just going to try it out inside the planer where it goes, and you can see the basic operation of this. The sides here of the infeed assembly, I guess you could say, are up tight against the sides of the jointer, and they guide it straight up and down so that it will, as you lift it up, it will stay in position side to side. That seems to be a good fit right there. It's the next day. Yesterday I brought this into my house where it's warm, and I gave it 2 coats of water-based polyurethane on all surfaces. I also built this part here, which is the ramp that interfaces with this. I thought it was a good idea to get this done so I can work on both today. And these lock together. They don't lock together actually. There's two knobs that will tighten these two together after you raise the infeed table up or lower it down or whatever. Then you reach inside and you'll tighten these knobs. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drill the holes for those knobs. And to do that, I'm just going to clamp these together, lay out where the holes are, and drill a 1/8 inch pilot hole. And what that 1/8 inch pilot hole does is locates the bigger bits so I can drill them out individually. I need a 7/16 inch hole in the ramp, I guess you could say. And I need a larger hole on the inclined plane on the infeed table to allow for some adjustment. It is a bit later, and I've made a couple of these big knobs here that have 3/8 inch studs in them to mate in with the 3/8 inch T-nuts that I drove in earlier. And I made them this big because, you really need to tighten this on really good to keep it from moving. And I thought that'd be the best way to oversize things a little bit. I also messed up a little bit. I had to move it up, the bottom one down there, or the top one, I should say, because it was too tight to the underside of the infeed table. Okay, this just drops in like this. And what I need to do is I need to set up something here to hold it up in place in line with the outfeed table, so that I can get the ramp attached to the side panels. Very much like the outfeed table, I need to make that ramp adjustable, since that's what guides the infeed table up and down and also controls the alignment of it in relationship to the outfeed table. So I've got the angle of the support ramp here, and I've got a mark that corresponds with the edge of it right there. So I'm just going to draw a line lightly to represent that. And then this is 1 inch wide, I do believe. So that will space my fasteners 1 inch away. And just like I did with the outfeed table, I'm going to carefully lay out where these screws go, but I'm only going to use screws to start with to fasten this in place. Afterwards, what I'll do is I'll take the screws out and I'll replace them with bolts that will hold that ramp in there a little bit better. Now I'm just doing exactly the same thing on the other side, drilling a couple holes and driving in the screws.